So I've learned over these last couple of years of just kind of being in the space and, just paying attention that just because you're a big influencer on the music side and you're a big cannabis advocate, that doesn't necessarily translate immediately, at least, to a successful brand in cannabis.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of The Dime. I'm Brian Fields, and with me, as always, is Kellen Finney. And this week, we've got a very special guest, John Monopoly and M1 of Urban Aroma. Gentlemen, thanks for taking the time. How you doing today?
Good, man. How you doing? How you guys doing?
Doing well. Excited to dive in with you guys. And just for the record, your locations, please.
This is John Monopoly, and I'm in Los Angeles.
This is Mutul Olubala, broadcasting live from the planet Earth via Miami, Florida.
I love it, Kellen. I think we're going to have a 1.5 for the East Coast. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I think it's a nice split, East Coast, West Coast, both vibing.
Yeah, we're going to have a nice conversation there. So gentlemen, for our listeners who are unfamiliar with you, can you give a little background about you guys and kind of what led you to the cannabis space? John, do you want to go first?
Sure. My name is John Monopoly. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I've been in the entertainment industry for 30 plus years. I started when I was very young as a promoter, promoting hip hop parties and hip hop concerts throughout the city. And then I went on to manage a bunch of different acts. I worked, I was on managing Busta Rhymes for a while. I was on Missy Elliott's management team for a while. I managed Mobb Deep for a short period. I managed Carl Thomas from Bad Boy. I'm mostly known for managing and discovering Kanye West. I met him in 1991 and we became very close friends and ended up doing a bunch of business together. And, I helped him launch his record label and do a bunch of things. And I've been blessed to be in the industry and be, somewhat successful for a long time. And I am a consumer of cannabis. It helps me with my anxiety and stress and something that's very close to me and dear to me. So when I got the opportunity to work with M and the Urban Aroma crew, I met M1 actually through Kanye a couple of years ago and we became friends. So when I got the opportunity, I just jumped at it. I love the platform. I love what we're about. And I'm here to add value however I can.
I am known to most of the world as M1, one half of the Tell It Like It Is. Everything is political rap duo Dead Prez that function as messengers in the hip hop space. Definitely like reality music, speaking to exactly to where people are and really reflecting a certain kind of truth and speaking truth to power is kind of like my secret power. And so the intersection of cannabis and culture has been evident to me since the beginning. One of my favorite messengers is Peter Tosh, who came with the message to legalize it at a time where, to me, he threw that yard marker so far ahead of where we are right now that I knew it was going to be the place for the future to catch up and for us to be. And I came to this space mainly because I saw that what is happening in cannabis is phenomenal as changing people's ideas about human rights or, about healthcare or the way we, educate our youth. It's a pivotal question in our life around health and wellness in that way. And again, as I started to, meet like-minded people in these spaces, one of the most interesting people who I saw who understood the acute differences in what cannabis was about was John Monopoly. Again, like I said, working, Kanye's political campaign and with him in other creative ways, let me see how John Monopoly gets down, and that he was already had, a foot planted in the cannabis space, and I felt that he would be great with our team, with Urban Aroma. So that's how we started collaborating.
So I'd love to learn a little bit about Urban Aroma and kind of the value that brings to the space. Is it for the traditional operators or for the retail market? Tell us like what the platform currently is and then where we see it going in the future.
Okay, so Urban Aroma is a cannabis directory at its base, if I had to just start about where it is. But it's definitely has branches and is a seed planted to grow in many directions. So it is a destination where cannabis meets culture, meets activism, and can grow into those places. Not only can you through our SEO and in the East Coast and gray market areas, put in where to find weed anywhere up and down the East Coast, and Urban Aroma will be the place that you will direct you toward the finest purveyors, of boutique and quality cannabis that have the type of ethical standard that we have been used to from the West Coast for so long. But also along with bringing you where to find that, we're also going to explain the philosophy of why weed ain't legal in DC yet, why there's a statehood issue, what's going on in New York, and what Mayor Eric Adams says about it, or what the operation of cannabis management OCM is saying. We're going to bring you culture and a way to activate your and empower your mission to free the plant. I think ultimately to free the plant. So that's kind of what Urban Aroma does and will do.
What was the inception for Urban Aroma? How'd you guys come up with the idea?
Urban Aroma came after working with some of my comrades for a long time. I come from a revolutionary background, obviously. So, we saw this space as one that was inundated with an upside downness of kind of people who were interested in exploiting the plant, and who also the people who had done, who had paid the most price and were sitting in prison for the plant weren't benefiting from it at all, meaning Black and brown people. So the inception of Urban Aroma came and balancing that space and wanting that to change. So we wanted to put the controller in the hand of the so-called minority or Black and brown user or legacy operator. It's to expose what the legacy work has been for all of these years that kept the cannabis alive. They kept weed and marijuana popular in a time when it was very unpopular and where we were prosecuted and persecuted for it. That is the inception of why Urban Aroma happened in the first place. And what more better voice to empower what Urban Aroma means than the voices that come out of the urban music, the hip hop community, R&B. We are. If we take it way back to Duke Ellington and Dizzy Gillespie blowing on J's, that is our truth. You know what I mean? Jazz was invented out of this paradigm. So that's what Urban Aroma is about. It's about putting like the voice back with the voiceless in that space and getting some sort of reckoning. And that's why it was conceived.
And just to piggyback off of what Em was saying, it's a real travesty that Black and brown people represent less than 4% of the overall market as far as being able to operate in the cannabis space in this country. The way that we've been persecuted and locked up and are still locked up for something that now looks like it's going to be federally legal in the very near future. We're here to shed light on the operators that look like us, and just to support the movement in general.
And even before John goes on, because he which is a great reason why we're here. He can touch base with, a lot of the community that feels the same way we do. So, we've worked with people who are, pushing the line on policy and legislation, and organizations who we collaborate with and work with, like Mission Green, Weldon Angelos, and those kind of people who are the ilk and that character to directly put money on the books for people who have been locked up for cannabis. And I think that really matters. Like, to be able to say, this is this money or our efforts will directly benefit going to books so people can eat or write letters or make action for the people that John was just talking about, have been leaned on. And it's a travesty that we don't have that voice. So not only are we talking the talk, but that's the walk that we are walking.
That's beautiful.
How does something like that happen? It's conversations with political parties. Is it larger outreach? Is it awareness? Take us through that conversation. How does something like that, take it from where it is and continue forward so that the people who have been, wrongfully locked up can get those benefits, like you were saying?
I think it comes from awareness and education, because a lot of people don't even know. They have no idea that Corvain Cooper got life for 40 tons of weed, just weed. They have no idea that Dante Westmoreland got all this time and organized his own campaign to free himself during the Trump campaign.
I think that the education is really communication. One of the best channels to communicate these kind of political messages and everything is music. And so cannabis and music have kind of been intertwined from a cultural perspective for a really long time. And John, you want to kind of touch on how much cannabis has influenced the music industry?
Oh, wow. So I remember the Chronic album.
Yeah.
You want to talk about influence, right?
Right.
I remember when it was still kind of cool to be a smoker, and then Dre dropped Chronic, and everybody was smoking immediately. Within 3 weeks of that record exploding, everybody was smoking. And it seems like everybody's been smoking ever since. There's such a big intersection there between cannabis culture and hip hop culture. Since the beginning of hip hop, almost, I would say that cannabis has played a part. And, it's definitely played a part in my life since I was very young. So,
is it an important part in the creative process as well, in the music making, or is it more of someone that just enjoyed on the side? Take us behind the scenes on how it's used from a music sense.
I know when we're recording records, whether the artist that I'm working with at the time is a smoker or not, it's always around. It's a part of the creative process. It's a part of the overall process, whether we're listening to music, whether we're shooting visuals, whether we're creating, it's always around. And especially being, in LA, where most of the artists come to record and create, with it being such a big part of the California culture, it's everywhere.
I wanna say what's so crazy is when the Chronic came out, we did not know what Chronic was, and I think, we in New York, we were smoking, smoking BC, British Columbia, shit with the orange hairs on it. We were smoking Arizona. We were smoking things that that were not as green or open. But I just want to say in the creative process, even if you're not a smoker of cannabis, as a creator, as an artist, like Manap said, it's in the room. And to me, it becomes a great translator. You know what I mean? So that, we ride, the elevation that comes from the high and the THC and CBD and terpenes and all that's present in the plant. That is almost like a plug of communication with the brains of the people. And that's, I think, how to go, a part that cannabis has played in what we're doing, especially in hip hop music. You know what I mean? So, so part of me.
Are there certain strains and creative products that certain artists lean on? For example, does Kanye West have a preferred product, or does a certain artist look for a certain product to kind of help them in an album in certain challenges? Or is it more just like the flower is the flower and this is the one I appreciate? How specific is the creative aspect with the artisanal craft?
Ye doesn't smoke like that. We've smoked together a couple times, but he doesn't have a particular strain because he's not a smoker. But yeah, I think there are preferred strains, and I don't think it's one that I could name necessarily. I know that, that Allen Iverson Viola is like a preferred strain. Of course, anything in the Cookies universe is super hot right now. And definitely what Young LB is doing with your Jokes Up and Runts. I think between those three families, you get kind of like most of the preferred hottest strains today. What do you would you say that's accurate, M, or who am I missing?
I mean, look, right now, like for instance, Mario Guzman. Say again.
I forgot to say Gumbo is a preferred strain right now.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, Shabinsky made gelato.
Right.
That shit that's just everywhere. It was like having a hit fucking record. You know what I mean? It was like when Lil Wayne made a Millie, like it's in every studio. You feel what I'm saying? Like it was like, so it's amazing to see especially geneticists such as like Mario Stravinsky come forward and affect our culture. You know what I mean? Like he hangs around with all the young producers, and I'll be in rooms where he is just as much a celebrity in his studio making music as the artist is. You know what I mean? So, so you can, of course, Young LB and Runts. I think he said that already. And for me, like I remember a time coming up where Kush was what it was. It was, Master Kush and OG Kush. Kush had developed and was, permeating the East Coast, and almost all good weed was called Kush at that point. I'm gonna take it back to that point. So if you wasn't smoking Kush in the studio, we probably couldn't get down. You know what I mean? Like, and before that, you had that Uptown Piff. The Piff was amazing. And that was always in the studio. If you ain't had Piff, then your studio wasn't lit. I promise you.
But Piff was more of a New York specific thing, right?
Indeed, exactly. Just like
outside of New York like that.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was New York, and just like New York sour diesel. You know what I mean? That's strain itself. You know what I'm saying? And it's regional. Obviously, you know what I'm saying? It's regional, but that to me, and I'm an indica smoker. I can't smoke sativa and create shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm an indica. I know some people need that up, but I need to feel it heavy in order for me to tap into that vital place. You know what I mean? But yeah, anyway,
I will say the West Coast came up with a lot of good strains, but one of my favorite strains is New York Sour Diesel, hands down.
So let's talk about the influencer partnership. Obviously, with music and cannabis being so linked together, one of the challenges we've heard in the industry is that bigger names are attaching themselves to strains and creating brands in order to kind of push their likeness, but are really detached from the actual product and the plant. Do you see that as a challenge? Is that something that you've seen in your circle? Can you kind of take us through your opinions there? John, you want to go first?
Sure. I've seen, and I don't want to say any names, but I've seen very influential, huge artists that are cannabis friendly and cannabis promoters, two in particular. And again, I just prefer not to name names because I don't want them to think I'm kind of, discrediting their efforts. But I'm watching them struggle. You know what I mean? It's like when you look at a guy like a Burner or a Young LB who are like huge stars in cannabis, and some of our counterparts from the music side that are much bigger stars than them, right? That have millions and millions of followers and platinum records and world tours, but they can't figure out how to get the same traction in the cannabis space as they do in the music and lifestyle space. And it's really challenging. Because there's just certain nuances that people buy into and certain things that they just don't as cannabis consumers, and it's just being a part of the culture. So I've learned over these last couple of years, just kind of being in the space and, just paying attention, that just because you're a big influencer on the music side and you're a big cannabis advocate, that doesn't necessarily translate immediately, at least, to a successful brand in cannabis. And it's just tricky. It's just tricky.
I want to piggyback on what Monopoly said, and I love it because you got a great mind in John Monopoly examining this. And that is, if anybody knows what tricky is, meaning like delivering to a consumer a product than John does, which he's done successfully in culture in many ways, manifested in so many ways, whether it be albums or clothes or anything that comes through the mind of the artist. So, I got to say that it's this, you know what I mean? Like when I see a brand and I see that who it's attached to, I have to know deeply that this artist understands the plant the way I do. And this is a very intimate way. It's cool that if you just smoke, that's cool, but I'm talking about see it as medicine. And it doesn't mean you got to like smoke a lot like me or roll big joints or anything. It just means that you have that intimate relationship with the plant. And I think that shows. I think people can tell. I think people know Burning Smoke's big and good. That's the reason why they can trust that brand. You know what I mean? So if you don't see other brands taking off, it's almost because we haven't seen the intimate relationship you may have had with that plant. I know people have seen mine, that's for sure. You know what I'm saying? Like I wrote so many songs about what it's like to, be in that journey and go through that journey. And people kind of can even come up to me with my favorite shit and be like, I know this is your favorite shit because we talked about that. You know what I mean? But I think, where you have that intimate disassociation with culture, I think that is going to play a major part in brands that are associated with artists taking off. You know what I mean? The more you let us in, the more we're like, oh, okay, I understand. Well, we're the same. You know what I mean? And, like John Monopoly got, the strain for bipolarity for, and people are going to say, oh, shit, I'm fucking with Monop shit, like, because I'm on that too. I'll be on that type of time too. You know what I mean? So, I see, that's how I see Monopoly. We got together because I could see, oh, this man smokes for a reason. It's a part of his DNA. And that to me, that speaks volumes.
I think that's so important because on the internet side for Twitter, there's always this push back and forth on when the big celebrity or musician attaches themselves to a brand. And then there's the purchasing manager who says he'd never buy this because it doesn't really sell so well. And I think one of the things that excites me with the announcement of John becoming Urban Aroma is the ability to kind of pair those creativity together and develop that trust exactly like you were saying, Em, so that it's deeper than just that initial push. And I can only imagine, the challenge of getting in and then kind of solidifying yourself with, the everyday consumer who sees a name and is not sure, but then trusts in that. And then the value is delivered upon moving forward. So are the hottest trends and strains, do they start in the dispensary or in the legacy outlets or underground?
Can I talk on this, Em?
Oh, please.
Underground first, legacy second, then in stores. Everything starts in the streets. Everything. Same way with a record. Your first spins ain't going to be at radio. Your first spins is in the club. Your first spins is in the strip club. It starts in the streets. Very, very similar to the cannabis space. You got guys, and again, I don't want to incriminate anybody, but you got guys that are making huge amounts of money in the cannabis space now because of the simple fact that they laid a foundation in the black market. Now they can do stuff above ground because they're so hot that they're moving real weight, where they need to. But all that starts underground. Would you say, Em, or am I off?
You're 100% right. To me, underground or the streets is synonymous with legacy. You know what I mean? That is synonymous to me. And because, we're the ones who, again, are going to smoke it in the room without anybody watching it, really taste and say, is this really what it is? Is this what that is? Is this that? You know what I mean? That's in the conversations of the rooms of the people. And it's not about anything except for how does this taste? How's that feel? Ooh, and that is where we develop, that word of mouth. We're going to pass it along. Like John said, it's going to be in the strip club. Yeah, your place is going to be lit simply if it smells like, if you smelling like that runs, I probably want to come in your spot. You know what I mean? And do what I do. So, at the end of the day, I think the dispensaries, this leads to the higher question. that corporate or dispensaries in that market and the legal market has to really take leadership from the legacy market. If it happens the other way around, people are going to balk the industry and have distrust in what they say that they provide and go to the legacy market, which is the reason why the competitive legacy marketing like California is the way that it is. Why, most people would rather be legacy 80% and only 20% of the people in cannabis are participating in illegally, So let's do it right. Let's listen to the streets first. Let's listen to the legacy first and build from there. That's my 2 cents.
And I think a lot of the strongest brands come from that whole avenue, right? We were talking about Burner and Jungle Boys. Like, they didn't cut their teeth in the legal market, right? They didn't learn the skills they know now, right? That creates that tremendous products that they put out there. That's all from the streets and legal legacies. And
now they got 2 of the biggest brands, and it all started underground for the people you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
And just like and to piggyback what Manap said, like Jay-Z came from crack, admittedly, and when he became president of Def Jam, he said that marketing strategy was me. So, literally, you could get a bunch of eggheads who graduated and read a bunch of books and went to college about marketing and urban, blah, 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 but it has to come from that real experience.
How do we get them to make the transition so that they're feeling comfortable in the more legal market, so there's a fair balance for let's say all?
You want to take that?
Sorry. Yeah, I do. And I'm sorry about this beeping in my background. I hope it's not so intrusive in here. I think it should go away in a few seconds. You said, to repeat the question, how can we do what now?
How do we get the people who are underground now to feel comfortable with coming out and operating in a legal market with, let's say, the rules and regulations of getting the products tested? So how do we get that balance to get them to feel comfortable to take that steps forward into more of the prominent light?
The first step, obviously, is to have a trusting relationship with the legal market that says we won't be prosecuted for the things that we did in the past while this market wasn't legal. Meaning browbeaten by law, saying we aren't going to be in a position to get the first licenses or looked at in some sort of side way. The term is amnesty. It's full amnesty. And I think if you're not starting with amnesty, you're not going to be able to build the trust in the legacy market and let people come forward and say, look, I've amassed this empire from cannabis this long, I'm going to come take, my empire and said money and wealth and resources and put it in your banks, and let's do this all legal and tax it and let's make it all work. The only way that's all going to work out is if we have an established communication and framework with structure and policy that holds amnesty as, a way that we can come forward from the true legacy operator, which I think is only going to be defined by the legacy operator ourselves. You know what I mean? It's not going to be defined by the state or for federal. And with that being said and sanctioned and legitimized in this way, go through the process of saying, look, we're going to come forward and we want to offer all that we have. But more than what we want to do is not be penalized for what we've done in the past. And that's how we're going to start. That's the place to start.
That's so powerful. So what is one thing you learned in the music industry that applies to the cannabis industry?
I learned very young how to market and launch an artist just from hustling, working at different labels and management companies and working with different artists. I kind of learned the ins and outs of how to brand and how to promote and how to launch a brand. And there's very similar process in the cannabis space. You got to build a brand, you got to push it, you have to make sure that it's hot in the streets first, before it crosses over. So there's a lot of parallels in that space, and that's what I learned. Em, you want to speak to it?
There's, I don't want to speak to the brilliance of John Monopoly. Who am I to even say anything? He laid it out. I think you might have gave up a little bit more jewelry than you should have gave him. But I can say this: as a touring artist for 20-something years, traveled the world some more times than I would care to admit. The most important thing to do is connect with people. It is that people feel you and understand the presence and importance of what, what's between us, and culture and music. It's a song that means something sometimes, even if it means just get fucked up or have a good time or free ourselves. It means something to us. And cannabis can be in that space. So I think what I've learned is building that community, building that real community. That they can't take that from us. I don't care how many laws you write. I don't care how many times you go to the Capitol steps. People are going to act in a manner that makes sense for us. And if we're community, if we're united on it, then we can make the definition. It's literally all power to the people in the form of cannabis. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I take from the music industry, especially hip hop, which is really follows no rules and really sets its own trends and is empowered by our community that is in many ways outcasted. You know what I mean? Our opinion matters nowhere else except culture. Even in places where we should naturally be leading, like sports and entertainment and more. I think we can change that relationship here. And so that's what I learned from music and that. But I just really got to say I'm thankful to be able to see the leadership of Manat, because that says it all, and that's the future, I think.
What's one way the cannabis plant has shocked you?
I'll say it shocked me when I was young, when I first started getting kind of comfortable with cannabis in high school. I was shocked at, when I started to learn how to use it right, how much it actually relaxed me. I didn't know what the actual effects were. I just knew at a young age that I liked the smell, and it seemed like something that I should fuck with at a very young age. But I didn't know it was gonna, completely cool me out as it has for 30 years. So what about you, Em?
I would say this, as definitely the same, the revolutionary thing that it did to my mind and the freeness of it allowing me to be me. I mean, I think that thing is, done wonders. I think psychedelics can do that. I don't think it's just unique to cannabis. It can be present in psilocybin. But the breakthrough definitely came from me in cannabis, and I feel the same kind of relationship with it as John Monopoly. But I would like to also say that recently, in a most kind of hippie way, I would find my way to Eureka and other places in California, Seattle and Portland, where, it was the regarding of what the plant is happens on another spiritual level. So then you have the development of a lifestyle. So it's hemp and other ways to process this, this thing into something more powerful than just something that we smoke. I mean, we could really make full industry around it. And I saw fabric and textiles begin to be born from it. And now it's talking to people like Isaiah Thomas, he's producing so much hemp and that he's creating, mechanisms and parts that are durable enough to replace, steel bolts and nuts in cars. That's pretty shocking to me. I think that what's more shocking is the fact that I know this, so I know the government knows this, but chooses not to move on something that can be so advantageous for them. That's fucking shocking. You know what I mean? So that's what I say.
Probably money motivated, unfortunately, right? I think at the end of the day, the government is influenced probably by previous decisions, and some of them may not be the best decisions for the collective and the environment. And they choose to do that. But you're right, 100%. And I think it's perfectly said with the unlocking that cannabis can do. And I think that's really the most exciting part for the masses. And I think here on the East Coast, who haven't had a chance to get as much exposure to the plant as they might like, just given the current framework, I think the unlocking is really coming. So let's talk about the summer series. I'm excited to learn about that. The pairing. Take us through that. What can we expect, and shed a little light on what that's going to be like.
Sure. Urban Aroma Summer Series. The events take place at Legacy, New York, which is located at 98 Orchard Street on the Lower East Side. We had our first event with Young LB from Jokes Up and Runts. It was a big success. And then we just had Mike Epps last week. And we have a lot of really exciting artists that we're working with to come do drops and come do meet and greets. And we'll be announcing our calendar very soon. And yeah, it's been great, and I'm really excited to tell you who all we have confirmed. We're just kind of at the end stages of locking everybody in, but within the next week or so, you'll be seeing some announcements online with an actual schedule with the actual artists that are affiliated. But so far, we've done, like I said, Young LB and Mike Epps, and they were both good turnouts.
I just want to tag on and say I just left New York City. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. The summertime in New York is an awesome time to be outside. The summertime of 2022 is crazy because cannabis is emerging and there's so many dispensaries out everywhere. It's like fucking crazy. It's popping up like mushrooms, and which is great because we want to build community. And so the idea of the summer sessions, like Monopoly said, is to engage in a community that we can keep the energy moving around the Lower East Side, where we found it so like little enclave, our spot, our gallery there, and our dispensary really works for like just being able to bring people in, and we have a spot in a nice downstairs where we, just do multimedia and have the ability to do, everything cannabis. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, like LB's party was crazy. Mike Epps came and burnt it down, stupid, but like, we are hosting other cannabis brands and other partners that are nearby and community that we all want to come in and partake together. So that's kind of what the summer series is about. And we're the best at doing it, especially with the art that we fuck with. So
it has a focus on giving back, which I think is so important. And I'd love for you guys to kind of shed on that it's not about just the event and the plan and the collaboration of music together, but also the association of helping others and giving back. Can you shed a little light on that?
I want to say that what people are going to get used to is that when you visit certain places that are cannabis friendly or progressive, that because you do that, you chip in on something that's from a higher purpose. You know what I mean? Like we work with the ASAP Foundation. This foundation has developed these fentanyl kits. Anybody who knows ASAP Yams or who knows, Ferg or any one of those dudes know that they are advocates of like, we can prevent like not knowing what we're ingesting in or even identifying the things that might be harmful to us before they get into our bodies. And so, you'll find the testing kit right there on our counter in Legacy. We are associating again with brands like Mission Green and Weldon Angelos, where we literally dollar for dollar will match people in putting down on the books of incarcerated cannabis people, men and women, who many of them we've begun to free and start working on freeing, but more than anything, we just need to let people know that they're there. So, we've given, tens and thousands of dollars in this campaign already. And we'll continue to do that. And our brand, People Army Farms, my brand that was born out of Dead Prez, is literally about when you purchase our gummies, our CMOS gummies, or our, People Army flower bags, you give to political prisoners and you give to, urban Black campaigns that support, against police brutality and the rest of that type of stuff. So I just, that again is the ethos of what Urban Aroma is about.
Before we do predictions, we ask all of our guests, if you could sum up your experience in a main takeaway or lesson learned to pass on to the next generation, what would it be? Em, you want to go first?
Nope, Manop. I want you to go first. I got to think about that. To a generation.
You said if I could sum up, what was it again?
Sum up your experience in a main takeaway or lesson learned to pass on to the next generation, what would it be? It can be life-related advice.
Work harder every day, be relentless, and no matter how many doors get closed in your face, never give up.
I'm going to start where Manop left off, which is beautiful because when you said that, like the only thing I could think of, the first thing that came to my head was never give up. I can testify that right now, these are some crazy times in America, in the world. You know what I mean? And it's not going to make sense the way it's being told. We're going to have to see it from an alternative point of view. I'm convinced of that. I'm convinced that the lens is going to have to change and the tellers of the stories are going to be different. And, and we're seeing it all come to pass. Shit, the criminal weed is now a superhero savior for our community. I never thought I'd see some of these days. It can look bleak. It can look like there is not worth it. I've been there. You know what I mean? But more than anything, if you don't give up and you can keep the idea that you have in your head, that hope is there, we will likely succeed. Just don't give up. And that's what I will pass to the next generation.
Well said. All right, prediction time. It's 2027. What type of events, releases, or activities are happening in New York to make it the biggest cannabis market in the world?
You know what's being released? Licenses. They're giving licenses out. They're releasing that in New York. And guess what? It's not being done fairly. They're not considering legacy. They are giving licenses out and about to roll out the second set of licenses. I think they're car licenses. And I just think that social equity doesn't do it. So, what we're seeing along with all the new dispensaries that's happening in New York, which makes it an amazing place to be. Shit, have you seen Washington Square Park lately? If you don't know what I'm talking about, then Google it. And I just think that if we're going to play this thing fair, you got to consider the legacy operators so we can be out there and we can be popping and make, this as hot as the summer in New York is. So I'm going to turn your question that way.
I like it.
That's right.
I think by 2027, you're going to see retail in every borough just popping everywhere. Hopefully, Black and brown people will be represented in that group. I think you're going to see whatever version of Web3. There are going to be some NFT or Web3 activations that I can't think of how it would work now because I'm not so familiar with this space, but I know it's the next frontier. And by then, it should be a new version of that probably coming out. And there'll be activations in the digital space. But again, more so than anything, I just hope that Black and brown people are represented when retail blows up in New York, because by then it'll definitely be popping.
I want to add on to that prediction as well. I think New York is going to scale to be the largest kind of boutique operation, like a producer. My prediction is we're going to catch up as far as cultivation and understanding how to scale, make our grow of the plant so unique. There's so many unique tastes in New York, and combined with the rich history of New York, like 2027 is going to look crazy with what is going to be available as far as like plant medicine and the rest of it. I think it's going to be better than Amsterdam, Morocco, Barcelona, California, any of that shit ever was. Is going to be the green giant.
I agree. I think one thing that's going to push that too is going to be consumption lounges. I think New York is going to be huge on consumption lounges, especially with the amount of get-togethers that, everyone loves to just hang out, and that whole community aspect associated with New York, which is what I think everyone really loves about New York is that community aspect and just getting together. And I think that consumption lounges and the ability to smoke and consume together is going to really separate New York from other states. Brian, what do you think?
I think a little bit of intersection of both. And I think John kind of touched on it before, but like a hidden underground album release party that's pushing a brand or a strain, I think is where like the streets can kind of take it to the next level, right? That exclusivity that builds like the massive hype. I think that's what makes New York kind of special. They have these like small enclaves where like there's small social circles where unless you know about it, you don't know about it. And it exists here in New York now. And I can only imagine with the intersection of music and cannabis continuing to growing with the leadership of both of you gentlemen at the helm. I'm excited for New York, and I think that's going to help take us to the new level. And I think that's what's going to separate us from California. I think California is not as closely tied into some of those hidden things that I'm at least envisioning in my head. Maybe it does exist, and I just have no idea, but I'm excited for that opportunity.
Me too. Well said.
So, gentlemen, for our listeners, they want to get in touch. They want to learn more about Urban Aroma and the Summer Series. Where can they reach you?
You can hit me on Instagram at John Monopoly, JOHN Monopoly, just like the board game, MONOPOLY.
You can always reach me out, obviously, at one Dead Prez RBG. But more than that, is go to Urban Aroma _, at Urban Aroma _. We're building our social media. We've had, because of, you already know what happens with cannabis online. So, we're developing ways to really communicate who we are and what we are. But if you hear this, then go to Urban Aroma _ or even just urbanaroma.com and just check out what we have, who we service, and the communities in DC and New York that we can blend together and turn into it's magic. You know what I mean? So that's where to find us.
We'll link it all up in the show notes. Thanks for taking the time, gentlemen. This was fun.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.